Red leather, yellow leather.
So I know, depending on how the schedule goes, we can definitely drop Steve Sisu.
Okay.
From like a...
Nope, that's fine.
Recording
It's out.
goes, like,
It's out.
It's from Mallrats.
Oh, yeah. Do it, Doug.
Yeah. Jay says it like from behind the thing.
That's right.
Do it, Doug.
Stand by. Going to air.
Stand by, Phil.
5,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by announce.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
All aboard! And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
Turn to page 394.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountain?
That is so fetch.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and die.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
Where's my super suit?
Hey, fat lard, come get some dinner.
I am not drinking any f***ing Merlot.
And I'm gonna try to forget the fact that you're a girl.
But dogs can look up.
Oh, durga.
You tell me when I saw this woman!
This is the Polar Express.
All right. Well, welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of 20 Years, 4 Beers. We are a podcast dedicated to rewatching movies from at least 2 decades ago, while simultaneously enjoying a minimum of 4 modern beers. My name is Steve, and this is my big brother,
Tim.
and we are coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. In this episode, we will be discussing a film that was likely on both of our top 10 films from 2004 back in the day, and we are rewatching Michael Mann's Collateral. Before we start, though, we typically take a few moments, probably more today, to discuss any new movies or television that we have watched recently. I have a few, but what do you got, Tim?
I have nothing.
What?
I really have not watched anything of note.
I have a wife and kids, and I'm busy.
No, actually, just we've had time in the evening, and the rarity has come up where Ellen's enjoyed reading some books. And that's not to insult her. She never listens, so she won't hear it. But it's like, she just doesn't read books that much. And then she has. And I'm like, sweet. So I've just been trying to catch up on books that I've been sitting on for a while. So that's been
You did rewatch The Usual Suspects lately?
That's true. I
good.
had some time on my hands. We watched The Usual Suspects, forgot how amazing it is.
Yeah.
And the twist is, just still holds up. Even knowing what happens, it's phenomenal. So,
I mean, I guess I have 3. I have to. I do have some TV I want to talk about, but I'll probably do that another time. The Acolyte and Trying. Because I'm not done with them yet. I want to wait for them to finish. But Ghostbusters Frozen Empire I watched. It's exactly what you would think it is.
Sure.
Right? Like it is. And it's like, what do I say? It's a less good version of Afterlife.
okay.
There's not much of a story to be had. And the evil threat just isn't much of a threat. There's not much of a like, oh my God, I really think they're gonna be in peril here. But it's one of those like, damn it, if I didn't have a good time and enjoyed it, and Paul Rudd and everybody's good in it, like it was fun. I mean, you're just like, yeah, and I think that's a good thing. I think sometimes you want a movie like that. No, we both love Afterlife.
Love it.
So it's not up to that by any means, but it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm going to watch with the kids because they loved Afterlife.
Yeah.
Too, so I'm sure they'll enjoy it.
And like Ghostbusters 2 isn't anywhere near as good as Ghostbusters 1.
No.
Like this, it has this like aura about it. And like this, I would probably pick this over Ghostbusters 2 in terms of I just enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
But anyway,
nice.
Then I watched Hitman, the brand new Netflix movie.
Dropped just last night.
Just dropped. That's right. Well, this will probably be released, in a couple weeks. But, and I said it to you earlier, but I am here for whatever Glenn Powell is putting out there now. Like I am.
Really?
Yeah. He's been around. I mean, Anyone But You is not a good movie.
Sure.
But he isn't the problem with that movie. It's not even a bad movie. It's just not a good movie.
Sure.
He's likable in everything he does. He is super likable, even when he's kind of a smarmy a-hole in some of his earlier work. But in this movie in particular, really good. Plays a bunch of different little just clips and roles of all these different, because he's a fake hitman. And so he decides to he doesn't keep the same character. He decides to cater his character to the person who they're trying to get. And so everyone's a little different. He does a bunch of different accents, bunch of different costumes. But really the movie is it's a rom-com, and it's a Linklater rom-com. And it is like, aside from Powell, it's worth a watch to watch him and co-star Arjona. I can't remember. Arjon, Arjona.
Sure.
Probably not since Mr. and Mrs. Smith have I seen a movie like a comparison that turned me on as much as the two of them did, where you're just like, you're like,
it's like a palpable
yes,
thing. Yeah.
you're like, what? Like, not only are they just two attractive people, but that's not, there's been hundreds of rom-coms with two attractive people that are just nothing to each other. In fact, Glenn Powell and Anyone But You with
Sydney
Sweeney.
Yeah,
they're fine together, but it's not like this. But I would say it's probably a top 10 Netflix movie.
Nice.
Like in terms of if you were going to rank them. So it's really good. I liked it, but it's a rom-com. I kind of was thinking like maybe it would be a rom-com action thriller where there'd be some random action, but it's not. It's based on a true story. So it's really good. And then the last thing I'll talk about is a movie called Last Stop in Yuma County. We talked about it a little bit, and I will say that this movie almost floored me. Like just like a little bit short, which means it will very likely end up on my top 10 films of the year.
Nice.
It could have been, in my opinion, an all-timer, like a movie you talk about 20 years from now. Sure. Like, and so it's I'm not going to go into the plot necessarily. It's just, we've talked about it, but for those of you listening, it's basically a one set movie. It takes place in this diner, and there's no gas at the gas station next door. So anyone who comes through for gas has to wait for the gas truck coming later that day because the next gas station is 100 miles away.
Gotcha.
So there's just nothing you can do but wait. And in that same time, our couple main characters interact with bank robbers. They interact with other people waiting, and the tension just builds and builds and builds.
Huh.
And it's got a ton of early, like mid 90s Tarantino Coen brothers feel. Okay. Because there's some real, like, legitimate humor along the way. Some really kind of awkward moments a little bit. Really good acting, everything. And the tension just builds. Really good use of music. The score is outstanding. It doesn't quite stick the ending. Sure. Like, to me, it was kind of like, because in my brain, I wanted it to be a certain way.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But that's not their fault, because that's the writer-director.
Sure.
He's actually directing the next Evil Dead movie. And so, like, it has a bit of that sort of feel of identity, of these one-off places where there's all take place in that hotel. This takes place in this diner.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to overhype it because maybe other people don't like it. But I, so far, have heard nothing but good things. So
awesome.
It's really good. All right. Well, as mentioned, we are going to re-watch Michael Mann's Collateral. The film follows a contract killer who flies into Los Angeles for one night to murder 3 people who are key to an upcoming major trial. The killer hires an unsuspecting cab driver for the night, though as you may guess, the driver discovers the hitman's purpose in town and also discovers he has a new connection to one of the targets. The driver must find a way to stop his fare from completing his assignment, preferably without dying in the process. The film is directed by Michael Mann, written by Stuart Beattie, and stars Tom Cruise as the contract killer, Jamie Foxx as the driver, Jada Pinkett Smith, Mark Ruffalo, and features performances from Javier Bardem, Bruce McGill, Irma P. Hall, and Peter Berg, and a very brief appearance from Jason Statham.
Yeah, Lenny, what's up? It's me.
Just got off the phone with the cops. Desk sergeant called to check you brought the cab in.
Yeah, so?
So, aside from I hate talking to cops, they tell me you crashed the goddamn cab?
No, I got crashed into. I didn't...
Do I care what, where, or why? You're paying.
It was an accident. You're not liable.
It was an accident. I'm not liable.
Bullshit, I'm making you liable. It's coming out of your goddamn pocket.
You tell me to stick this cab up his fat ass.
Can't do that, that's my boss.
So?
I need my job.
No, you don't.
You still there? I'm talking to you. Back.
He's not paying you a damn thing.
Who the hell is this?
Albert Ricardo, Assistant U.S. Attorney, a passenger in this cab, and I'm reporting you to the DMV.
Well, let's not get excited.
Not get excited? How am I supposed to not get excited listening to you try to extort a working man? You know goddamn well your collision policy and general liability umbrella will cover the damages. Now what are you trying to pull, you sarcastic prick?
Look, I was just trying to...
Tell it to him. Or tell him he's an asshole. Go ahead.
You're an asshole.
Tell him he pulls his shit again, you're gonna stick this yellow cab up his fat ass.
And next time you pulling these shit, I'm gonna have to stick this yellow cab up your fat ass.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
This is a social network
You don't have to be an intellectual property expert to understand the difference between right and wrong.
where we take a look back at the critical and fan reception from 2 decades ago.
Mark!
As usual, Tim takes point on this, so take it away, Tim.
You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything. $1 billion.
The IMDb rating is 7.5 out of 10, which I was like...
I'd be higher, but I think that's actually...
It makes sense for the...
On IMDb.
Yep, the genre. Colin Kennedy of Empire Magazine said, perhaps the best premise for thrills since Speed. Only this time the bad guy's on board, and the battle of wits is more philosophical debates than pop quizzes. David Anson of Newsweek said, in the home stretch, the thrills get a bit too generic and far-fetched for their own good, but for the first 2/3, Collateral is an absolute knockout. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4. Said the film is essentially a long conversation between a killer and a man who fears for his life, punctuated with intense scenes that happen at each of the stops Vincent must make throughout the night. Cruise brings a great deal more to his contract killer than we expect in a thriller, and Fox's work is a revelation. Director Mann is working in the same genre as his masterpiece Heat, but this film is deepened beyond simple genre because Collateral is a rare thriller that's as much character study as sound and fury. Academy Awards that year, it was up for 2 for film editing and supporting actor for Jamie Foxx.
Which always kind of, like, when you watch this film, like, is he really a supporting actor in this movie? Like, if this is like Judas and the Black Messiah a few years ago?
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, okay, you're in this movie literally every scene.
Yeah.
He is like basically in every scene.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, supporting actor. That's just because he had Ray.
Because he's like, he's going to win for Ray. So yeah.
Which makes sense. I get it.
It works.
And you're like, okay. Well, there you go. We are going to pause and rewatch the movie. If you are so inclined, go right ahead and watch along with us. If not, we'll see you on the other side of this break. Here now is Collateral.
How's this? I'll ask a question.
What question?
Jazz question. Hey, you get it right. We roll. You disappear tonight.
If I walk out of here tonight, I will go so far away it'll be just like I was dead. And one more thing. These people in their rep here, Felix, well, you tell them I'm sorry. You tell them I had to. They laid a grant of immunity on me. I was compelled. It was either play ball or go back inside, and I'm not going back inside. Lay it on me.
Where did Miles learn music?
I know everything there is to know about Miles.
Then let's have it.
Music school. You got it in music school, right?
His father was a dentist, East St. Louis. Invested in agriculture, made plenty of money. He sent Miles to Juilliard School of Music, New York, 1945.
Tripped out of Juilliard after less than a year, tracked down Charlie Parker on 52nd Street, who mentored him for the next 3 years.
We begin our discussion with our reaction segment that we call Spotlight.
This is Boston, and the church does not want them to be found. So, they are not there.
This is where we highlight and discuss our top takeaways of any kind from rewatching our subject film.
We've got two stories here. We've got a story about degenerate clergy, and we've got a story about a bunch of lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry.
If there were 90 of these bastards, people would know.
Maybe they do.
This is Spotlight.
They knew, and they let it happen.
All right, well, welcome back to 20 Years, 4 Beers, where we have just finished rewatching Collateral, and also have had 4 new beers that we will review in a segment coming up. I mean, I have a lot of notes. You know, I'm kind of curious where this is going to go.
So buckle up.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the, we're known for basically sucking off most of our movies, but this is definitely...
I mean, we have a select list every year that we narrow down and go, like, let's rewatch these because we're going to enjoy it and like to talk about it. And this is one of those prime examples of like...
This was easily...
It's going to be one of those like, oh, Tim is being hyperbolic. Here we go. I'll try and rein it in. But it is definitely one of those, when we looked at 2004, it was like, absolutely.
Yeah, this was
a no-brainer.
You had the obvious of the Oscar, winners and things like that was like, yeah, we got to cover that. I would venture to guess that of this, I have to look at what we have coming up. I mean, there's very few movies the rest of the year that I was like jazzed to cover.
Very true. Yeah.
Not to say that it was like, oh, we should cover this. That's true. But like actually like jacked to the tees. I want to watch this again.
Can't wait.
Like,
yes.
Yeah, this is probably, I mean, in that sense, outside of like the 94 and 99 movies, it's kind of downhill from here.
This definitely.
Not in like a negative way, but just like, it's just, I know there are good movies to come.
Yes.
I get it. But none of them were like, I'm like excited to watch that movie.
Yes. And this is one of those where we've struggled before. Again, woe is us. But like taking notes.
Yeah.
I enjoyed a few thoughts.
He took a few notes. I mean,
and I was like kind of like typing a bunch, but it's like at the core of it, I've seen this enough, but probably not in the past 10 years at least.
It's been a while for me, actually. Yeah. And
but I was like,
I love to rewatch movies because I ain't got shit else to do. And I have not watched this in a while.
But like the last half hour, I was like, nah, I think I'm good. Like I just want to watch the movie. And so I agree. We'll talk through some of the specifics, but I'm so happy we watched this again. And I unabashedly just effing love this movie.
Yeah, which is why I think we're going to start here in that I want to take our time for me, and I want to talk about the performances. Sure. I think that like there's a lot of things we're going to cover, but I mean, seriously, top-notch performances from I mean, yes, everyone, but really legitimately from Cruise and Fox. And I remember at the time, people were more surprised at Fox because, Ray hadn't come out yet.
Sure.
And at least I believe it hadn't come out yet. And like, it was this twofer where you had this and Ray coming, and this was a comedic actor. Hadn't really done much outside of Any Given Sunday. Yeah, exactly.
He was an Ali. Like small things, but not like major. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's why he stands out. But Cruise is so flipping good here. What sets Fox apart is he has an actual character arc here. He actually shows change. He actually is a very meek and like mild-mannered person, and at the end he finally kind of finds his stones that, quite frankly, he wouldn't have found without the contract killer trying to kill him. But really, and that's what I will say, like what I love about this movie from like a writing standpoint, it's that Vincent and him had an actual rapport.
Yes.
Before we find out, before Jamie Foxx or Max finds out that he's a killer.
Yeah.
They had an actual rapport. They were getting along, like you could kind of see it. And Vincent actually sort of changes him, not solely because of the fear of death, but he was getting to him before that. Like I think, and that's so for me. I think we need to start with like Cruise and Fox from a performance standpoint.
Well, and you think about in the few times, well, not few, but enough times where I've had a cab or Uber or Lyft.
Cab, it's been a while.
It's been a
Uber
while.
and Lyft, yeah. Matt and I took Matt and I took one in New York, and that was about it.
And it's like the last thing I ever want to do is engage with this person.
Totally. Any of them. Uber, Lyft, just shut up.
And so it wouldn't work from a movie standpoint if you didn't have that engagement. So I recognize the irony of that.
Yeah.
But what elevates this, I agree, is the beginning conversation that Max, Fox's character, has with Annie, her name is.
Yeah.
And it's like really charismatic and it's interesting. And it's like, all right, it's got some flirtation. Like, all right, it's a cool, like kind of like 5-minute scene or whatever. And then it's not the same type of vibe, but I agree. When Vincent comes in the same cab and there's that similar type of interaction, conversation, repartee, and then it's absolutely elevated because what then happens thereafter is Fox's average Joe, everyman character. I'm just like, hey, here to drive a cab, way over my head. And I agree. Cruz, and I don't know that I can remember. I think this is the first time he was like a bad guy.
Well, actually, he's had 2 bad guy performances before this. This is technically the last time he's been a bad guy, kind of. So he had Interview with a Vampire. He was the bad guy.
Sure.
And then Taps, way back in the early 80s, which you've never seen.
No.
He was the bad guy in that. Spoiler alert. But,
spoiler, yeah.
And I mean, like, he's Les Goodman or whatever in Tropic Thunder. He's kind of the bad guy.
Sure, yeah.
But that's different.
But it's a very different.
But this is really this is the last time he was a bad guy. You know what I mean? But it is rare for him to be a bad guy.
No, but he's so
good.
Good.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's the clear commitment he has and everything he does to like full on living into the role.
Yeah.
And I agree. Having appreciated Fox somewhat up to that point and other stuff I remember seeing him in was like, yeah, he's a fine actor.
Yeah, we didn't know that this is what he had.
But the two of them together, it's like one of those rare combos.
Yeah.
That you're so thankful for to be like from a movie going standpoint, where at the time you've got clearly Cruz is a movie star, huge. And
inarguably.
But in a different vibe of what he's going for usually, and a career like not defining, but like emergence standpoint. Coming together.
Career launching almost.
God, it's so good, the two of them.
Yeah.
And it's a great like cat and mouse, good guy, bad guy, but it's not like the typical thing if you were to say like, oh, it's a contract killer and he's a cab driver. But it is this stuff that the character development and the connection they clearly start to build, even under dire circumstances and tension. There's moments where like you can see the two of them hating but also appreciating each other.
Yeah.
It's a tough balance to strike.
Yeah. And
from a writing and performance standpoint.
Yeah, from a writing standpoint too, and I don't want to pivot yet, but what I like is at no point did anything that Jamie Foxx do feel like premeditated. He was he was not planning his escape. He's not when he steals the bag, when Vincent's visiting his mother.
Yep.
All of his actions are just in the moment, like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to, you know what I mean?
Might happen.
What can I do? And Fox does a really good job with that. Fox does a really good job to me from like the innocent bystander, but not a victim. Like it's like he's not a bystander, but he's innocent for sure.
Yeah.
But I never feel like sorry for him. I don't know. He does such a good job of like, oh, why would you? Because so often in film you see somebody, you're like, why would you do that? I would just do this. And you're like, no, I would do everything that Max does in this scenario. Right. So he's very believable. And that's from a performance standpoint. But the more I think the years have gone on, the more I'm impressed with Cruz in this movie.
Yes.
Just, yes, you talked about it. Commitment to the accuracy, like commitment to the character, just the facial buy-in of we talked about this with Last Samurai. I really don't know what Tom Cruise has to do to like be respected in Hollywood anymore.
Yeah.
Because And he was at this time, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I think he hadn't jumped on the couches yet.
No, that was 2005.
Yeah, and I get that, and I get the Scientology thing, and I have a problem with that. I'm not arguing I'm not arguing any of that stuff. But in the end, like from an acting standpoint, I don't know what the guy has to do. Like, no. He's great in this. He's great in Magnolia, which we'll talk about later this year. He's great in everything. Has he done a bad film? I think we talked about this with Samurai. I don't think he's done a bad film. And if he's been in a somewhat subpar film, because he's been in some, American Made was fine. Rock of Ages wasn't great.
Night and Day was like,
Night and Day. I enjoy Night and Day, but if you're going to tell me a bad Tom Cruise film, I'm going to turn around and say, yeah, but was Tom Cruise bad in that film?
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to tell me no, because Rock of Ages, he's outstanding.
He's so good
in that movie. And American Made, he's great. Night and Day, he's bought into that.
Sure.
And I don't know when the last time you watched that was.
The first time.
Watch it again, because it's still James Mangold, it's still Tom Cruise, and it's still it's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I think, and so you could list off some movies that maybe aren't great. The Mummy, I think, is probably his quote unquote worst movie.
Yeah.
But even then, they were trying to launch.
That was so studio forced.
Right. But even then, he wasn't bad. So I'm saying, I don't know what Tom Cruise has to do to really earn respect. And at this point, it's probably not going to happen. And he did get Top Gun Maverick nominated for Best Picture. I get that.
That's true.
So I mean, I understand. And he is going to be, in future, I'm sure he's got more coming out. I forgot what he's got coming up next besides the next
Mission Impossible. Yeah.
But there again, we haven't talked about Mission Impossible yet with him, and I don't know when MI3 came out. I think it was 06 or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
I just don't know what he has to do, and I'm rambling about him, but he's so effing great in this movie. Somebody, I think, said in one of we didn't cover it in Social Network, but I know somebody said it's his best performance. And while obviously Magnolia is his best performance in my mind, and I think in yours,
absolutely.
And I actually would put Tropic Thunder or Born on the 4th of July or even A Few Good Men above that. But this is really great.
Yes.
He is just a badass. At no point did I believed he was a bad guy.
Yes.
He is not somebody, he was unlikable, but I did like him.
Well, and I think what works for I did kind of like him.
I'm just saying, he's not redeemable, but he likes jazz but he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
And he just does it. And he is so confident in his existence as the contract killer.
And what I think works,
and he didn't, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm sorry. Max didn't convert him.
No.
He is exactly what he was.
Yeah. Well, to me, I think what works for this character is that when we think of, I always lament the stupid, unless it's a genre thing or it's kind of the vibe of the movie, the villain should kind of blend in to the world. And you could see this dude just walking about the world.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm ostentatious or over the top or anything. It's just like, here's a normal dude, looks like a business guy, walking around. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, he's a contract killer and has amazing skills and will just lay you out.
Yeah.
And then just go about his day and just go back to his work.
He shoots up that club.
Yes.
And so does everyone else. And he finally gets his mark, and then he just turns around and walks out.
Yep. He's like,
yep, I'm done. Job done.
And I think
it's so good.
That's the effortless work that Cruise puts in. Well, it appears effortless, but it's really great work.
It's a ton of work. He did months of work with the LAPD on how to shoot, on how to do, he did literally 3 months of work with them to figure out how to do this the right way.
And I recognize it's a bit of a writing piece, but it's also then the delivery of it. What I love about the interaction between the two of them is after the first guy dies and Max is freaking out. And when Vincent's talking through, again, some of the reviews talked about philosophical debates. It's like, were you losing your shit over Rwanda? Oh, but one fat Angelino and you lose your shit. I just love the idea of Vincent's perspective on the world is absolutely warped.
Yeah.
But not crazy wrong.
Right.
In some ways where you're like, this is one dude.
Yeah.
We have a job to do. I get it. You're over your head. Let's keep going. And we move through it. And
yeah, it's that proximity, right?
Yes.
It's now in front of him as opposed to on TV or whatever.
Yeah, or like some distant world.
Yep.
And that's what I think. And the movie is so much better because of the two of them together. And Fox, he's just flat out incredible.
He is great. He is great. He's also not a supporting role.
No.
Like, I mean, he's just not. He's a co-lead in this.
Yes. It's weird to be like, yeah, they're both leads in this, but one works, I guess, for the nature of the award sequence. But he just is so good at that.
He's really good.
Budding type of, scrambling around. And then these moments, like when he goes to see Felix and has to turn on, like, I'm a badass guy. I have to portray this badass killer.
Yep.
And I can't be this meek, oh God, what's happening? It just is so just forceful when he has a conversation with Felix, the kind of, crime boss, like, of sorts. And
that scene is great.
Exactly. And so you can see these things coming into play. So I agree. The two of them, it doesn't work without them. I think actually, I don't know that I could think of different people to play the roles.
I saw some people who had been like up for it. I don't know if you have trivia on this at all, but at some point somebody wanted, so at some point Russell Crowe was attached, which is actually how Michael Mann came into the picture.
Oh, because of Insider.
I mean? Because of Insider. And then Russell Crowe had to drop out, and then they went to Tom Cruise, and there were other people before. And then somebody, I can't remember who it was, if it was Cruise or somebody else, wanted Robert De Niro as the driver. It was a screenwriter. He wanted Robert De Niro as a driver, kind of an older guy about to retire or whatever, that kind of a sentiment. And even then, that would work for the first sort of half.
Yes.
But once the action piece comes in, or sort of the actual shooting and stuff, then I feel like that wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, there's no way this old dude is some contract.
Right, exactly. And so that obviously wouldn't have worked. But I agree in that it had to be somebody. And so the studio actually wanted a young person in as the cabbie. They wanted somebody younger than De Niro. So credit to the studio for actually doing something the right way. And so I think the two of them, Russell Crowe could have done a good job in this. Don't get me wrong, but it would have been different.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that a little bit with directors later, but like, it's just, I agree. The two of them together, it now is a perfect casting.
Because I think what elevates the material is when they come to the second killing.
Yeah.
And
excuse me.
Cruise has to leave, but now that the cat's out of the bag, he has to tie Max to the cab.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he's like, who's this guy like yakking up on this freaking, walkie-talkie or whatever? Oh, it's my supervisor. Shit. Okay. So
the blending of
like it's the humor piece. And so he gets in the cab and talks about like, just, I'm this person. I mean, it totally works because it's now they're starting to build a weird bond and a relationship, and it totally works. And so it's humorous, but then when soon thereafter the guy's been killed and Vincent comes out and the briefcase has been stolen, and he's just like, hey, and that's really the first time we see him.
That's the first time we see him kill.
Be that just, oh, sure, I'm no big deal, and then just lay waste to those two guys.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit, the movie just elevates.
Yep.
Because prior to that, it's like, yeah, he's a bad guy, but you don't see it in action.
Yeah,
but once you
likable.
do,
yep,
it's like, oh god, we cannot mess with this guy.
Yeah.
And so that's where I love, like, the screws start getting turned, and the tension builds, and the bonding in a weird way it explores. It's just, let's go see jazz. Anyway, it just, it's so incredible. Yeah, the two of them, fantastic.
I'm looking at the original screenplay. So I read that Stuart Beattie came up with this initial idea when he was in college in Australia, excuse me. And he got in a cab and he was like, what if this, like, and it was like an idea, and he wrote some treatments and stuff, and then he wrote a full like screenplay, and he had a different name for it. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but he kind of shelved it and had it in the back of his brain. And then we've covered him in the past a little bit because he was he's got a screenplay credit or a story credit on Pirates of the Caribbean,
sure,
and some other stuff. And boy, Eternal Sunshine obviously is the winner of best screenplay that year. The Aviator, sure, John Logan's good. Hotel Rwanda, see it. Great movie. Love it. The Incredibles, of course.
Yep.
Right?
Brad Bird.
And Vera Drake I don't think you've even seen it.
Never even seen it.
I can see how that would have been, there. So I can kind of see how this doesn't come up with a screenplay nomination. But my God, it is so you talked about it with the philosophy piece, like the sort of the weaving of this existential sort of the situation they're in, and how he talks about the universe and then 6 billion people on the planet and all this other, like the writing is so well done, and then the tension builds. And yes, that's a director's standpoint, but still the writing does a good job of that.
Yes,
because you don't see the first murder, you don't see the second murder. What you do see is these gangbangers get killed by him in like pretty epic fashion.
Yes,
like. And then the third one, his third kill, is one that you're like, I don't want this guy to die.
No.
It's the jazz guy. Like, and it continues to build on this tension, and that is such good writing.
Yes.
And I guess neither one of us have read the screenplay, so maybe the directing and the visuals and stuff, I'll play that. But man, this screenplay is really good.
I said it's a totally tight and compelling script.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. You start.
You bought in
the evening on whatever day.
Yes.
It was like January 24th and 25th of 2004 is when this takes place. I read online.
Oh, that's funny.
Like those are the dates or whatever. But yeah, that's
it's just in a 8-hour window. We're gonna have this compelling story that just clicks along, and I love you talking about that because the first death is. Out, like it went off the rails. So Max had tried to kill this guy in the room, fell out the window, or sorry, Vincent did, and it's like, oh shit, now we got to adapt.
Yeah,
it wasn't part of our plan.
Yeah, the bullets in the fall killed him.
Yeah, exactly. He fell. I didn't push him. And then the second kill, same thing, outside of our purview. And then what works is when the third kill happens, and it's really tragic and sad.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, and you can see why this guy would turn state's evidence because he's like, I'm not going back. And so it's these things that get fleshed out that don't like, it's not, again, script writing. I've never read a script, but it's like, it's not this big, huge thing. It's just when he's like, oh yeah, I can't wait to tell the story to the Cartagena or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm here to kill you.
Just blam.
Yes. And you're like, oh, and like Max is there the whole time. He's like, oh shit. Like why? He thought he was here just to be like a time passage.
Yes. Yep.
And it's like, oh no, you're here to phenomenal writing.
Mm-hmm.
And what works, I think, is then it's these little things like, how can we have something built up for tension? Let's go visit Max's mom.
Right.
Like you go, this wouldn't be a normal thing in a movie.
Yes.
But because it works for when Vincent's saying, the more you deviate from your routine, the more attention is brought to us. We're going to see your mom. And it works.
And you think in the moment, why are we even here? And then he steals the bag and runs and then
destroys
the bag,
the intel.
And then he has to go see Felix. Like it turns a seemingly innocuous turn.
Yep.
Actually turns into a really important piece to the story.
And I think
the really good writing.
Exactly. And I think to that point, like the movie doesn't work in the same way unless you have these things that seem tiny elements coming together. So then when they go visit Felix, and then this is the first time the cops who've been in there somewhat before then trying to figure out these murders now get a sense of, okay, this is bigger than us because now it's connected to these different killings. Something bigger is going on.
Yeah.
And then you have juxtaposed with that is now the bad guys who have hired Vincent are on, like, they're concerned.
Yes.
To put it lightly. And so now, from this point forward, outside of Max and Vincent's purview, so somewhat luxury from the audience, you've got these two opposing forces coming at them.
Yeah.
You've got the cops and the cartels coming to try and kill them and stop them at the next fourth kill. Genius writing. So the tension is more and more and more.
Yeah, and I think that's where you get to a point where you know that Vincent knows this is happening, right? And so now they have that, and now Vincent knows that he has to be a little bit careless in the club.
Yep.
Vincent would never have just shown up ready to just start firing.
No.
And I understand that other people saw him and like shit went down before Vincent started firing, but he knows that it's about to go off the rails.
Yep.
But we don't have to be told that as an audience. We just experience that.
Yep.
The writing is outstanding.
I totally agree. And it has no business being as good as it is. If you think about the premise of I'm a cab driver and a contract killer comes in, and now I'm at his whim. But it could have been so dumb. It's so fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, great writing. So,
what do you got? Transition off of that.
Well, and I think it's the writing piece because I think before one of the reviewers talked about the premise being the best kind of thriller aspect since Speed.
Yeah.
And so thinking about a 10-year difference between the two of them.
Yeah, spot on.
What I really love about this movie is it's the rare film where it's like the regular guy caught up in something way outside of what he's used to. And we love Speed. We talked about it, how great it is. It's fantastic. But it's perfect for the genre, but it's really somewhat the stereotypical, like a cop.
Yeah.
That's centered on a cop.
Yep.
What I always loved about this was that it's not some normal, like, person to say the day that's going to say the day. It's a different element where dumb luck, just random crap.
Yeah.
And now this regular guy is going to save the day. And that's what is so fantastic. And it's a great performance. It's more deep than the characters, but I always appreciated this movie not just being a cop or agent or whatever it is that is trained in this.
Yeah.
Like when Max is trying to figure out how to shoot a gun. He's like, oh shit, the safety's on.
Safety's
like,
on.
Yeah. It's just all these funny things that play with it, but it just shows how the progression of this character can develop over a few hours' time. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think one of the things I appreciate is that so often, especially in action films, it turns into how this cabbie is a former Marine.
Yeah.
Or
right. Oh, yeah.
Some sort of with a background in killing.
Yeah, washed out.
And you don't know what you're getting into back there. We're just waiting for him. No, he is a legitimate Joe Schmo, you and me, who have never held guns in our lives or whatever, or for the most part, like
never.
What what would you do in this scenario? So I love that he is a true, like, everyman character.
Yeah,
and he also lies to his mom. Has these dreams that are never going to come true.
Yep.
Like, he's living this life basically till he dies.
Yep.
And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And so he is an everyman character.
Yes.
Really well done.
Exactly.
I love that. I want to touch base real quick with something you asked me early on was, do you think that he ended up in that building? Do you think Cruz ended up in that building to kill her first?
I was wondering, watching it, being like, why is Vincent randomly at this place where he drops off this character?
Yeah,
or
except
Max does,
Then it occurs to me that it's attached to the subway. So he would have taken the subway from the airport to there.
Yep.
Gotten a cab. Yep. Gone to do his thing like he did presumably in San Francisco.
Yep.
Ended up back there, killed said cabbie, killed her, gotten on the train, and off he goes.
Off he goes.
Because obviously it was in that like moment of... So you had a question that is not asked or answered at anywhere in this screenplay, but could be a quibble of some kind. And you go, no, I can find my way around this.
Yep.
He gets the bag from Jason Statham, and
that's right.
Off he goes. He would have hopped on the train, ended up down. I presume the train goes to LAX in LA. Literally, nobody takes a train in LA, which is why they could have filmed that probably during the middle of the day.
Exactly.
But and so you can find a way to get there. Your question can be answered.
Yes.
Without it having to be forcefully answered in the screenplay. Anyway.
Which works. Yeah. Because I remember like at the beginning, like, why was that? Now it makes sense. Yes, it works.
So what do you got?
The club shootout sequence.
Yeah.
So we talked about like, off screen, and the third one is like horrible when it happens, but also like really sad.
It's also the only one he uses a silencer on, which I understand why.
Yes.
Well, maybe he would have used a silencer on the other two. Well, maybe.
It's too, I think probably too cumbersome.
Yeah.
Like in the club.
Yeah.
But the club shootout sequence is still so effing awesome.
So great. Well, yeah.
It's like peak Man, the director, like his aesthetic and the tension coming to a head and just the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first time that we see Cruz, Vincent's character really showing how much of a badass he is.
Yeah. Yep.
Because prior to that, it's all like
it's hand-to-hand combat.
It's
at
using
that point,
other
right?
people to kind of do, and he's killing people like one up, but not in a. You've got the cartel and the cops there, and hand to hand in the moment, and preemptively, I'm going to kill that guy first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kill, just snap his neck. Cool, move on. Kill that guy first, and it's so awesome. And yet, then you juxtapose it with he saves Max.
Yeah,
and that's, I think, what a great. Again, testament to the writing and the development, and the characters, all these things. Where in that moment, like he could have killed him, but then we go, oh no, but he's still a tool. He still needs him.
He needs him as
because it's part of the plan to be the one they can. Because prior to that, Vincent was it's not me, it's him. Anyway, but that sequence alone, I still remember it, and it was so awesome.
Yeah,
and watching it, it's so fantastic.
Yeah, the tension builds great in that.
Yes,
and that's sort of it comes to a head. I have nothing on that one. I didn't even write it down. Man, the editing is so really good in this. Like you do get a sense of that. But I want to talk real quick about it was. You mentioned separately off air that as a filmmaker, man, and even as an actor, Javier Bardem coughing in the middle of his speech, right? And keeping that in.
Yeah, clears his throat, keeps moving.
But what I found fascinating from an editing and a filmmaking standpoint is Javier Bardem's speech there talking about Santa's helper, Black Peter. That doesn't cut away.
True, yeah.
The entirety of this movie is pretty shortcuts.
Yeah.
Lots of shortcuts. Not like let's not talk about Mike. We're not talking about
Michael Bay.
We're not talking about Michael Bay.
Yeah.
But pretty shortcuts. There's there are no, maybe at the beginning with some of the cab scenes in the conversation, but even then there's cutaways.
Sure.
It is a one-off shot for about a minute, maybe. Of when it slightly zooms in on him, and it's just, and you're like, clearly there is a filmmaker, like a creative decision to say, we're not going to show Jamie Foxx's reaction to this. We're going to hold on him. And I really want to go back and watch that scene and be like, what is he saying? Because he's talking about if I'm Santa Claus and you're Black Peter, what would I do? Why is that the scene? Why is that the scene that is like, and I want to think it's probably because Javier Bardem's so good in that role.
True.
But I love the editing in this, but I love the creative choices in it. It's really interesting to me. I have no answer to it. We didn't interview anybody before this, but that is that has to be a strategic decision by somebody involved to keep it on Javier Bardem for that entire time.
Yeah.
And I really like that scene.
And I think it shows the weight of the character of Felix.
Mm-hmm.
In my ignorance to like how movies are made, but just kind of talking through, it's been so just forward momentum and chaotic and disequilibrium prior to then. It's like, it's okay. And then this is the first time where now Max is put in a position where he has to present himself as the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's the killer. Here it is, to someone that could easily just take him out.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's like, that's just pause everything. And this Felix guy is the center of all this, even though he's being paid in many ways by other people, whatever. But it shows the magnitude of what it would take to get the information to the necessary killer to take out these people. Because this isn't like a case that's been really brought yet. It's being in built.
Process. Yep.
And so that type of, again, to the writing credit, that's go behind the scenes of what it would take to actually show how someone would get to this point.
Yeah.
To be able to make the decision to like take out these and what, power they might have. And it's just like, let's just focus on this.
Yeah.
And I agree. It's just like, it just is this calm in this storm.
Yeah.
But man, it is intense.
It's really good.
And just that shift of like, let me tell you like a weird little parable. I got kids, a Santa thing.
Yes.
And it's just like, oh, now I see, like, you do not mess with this guy.
Yeah.
And what is great is like in that tension, Max then continues to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, he does. Yep. He doesn't wither.
Will, it's just like,
Will. Yep.
Yeah, he's like, oh my gosh. So I agree. But it's just fantastic. So, speaking of Michael Mann, and, you know, we talked in, you know, The Insider, appreciation for the 99 films. And at some point from a time capsule, we'll have to certainly watch Heat again because it's just amazing. But
yeah.
I do think we take it for granted now. But I remember at the time reading something about this was the first time Mann filmed in digital.
Yep.
And prior to that, it was all like the kind of cinematic, the film aspect.
Yeah,
this was
35mm,
the digital piece. And I think the lack of that cinematic feel, because I think we've seen so many movies since then that are just like, look like you've been on a digital or like your phone or whatever it is, but it adds to so much of that kind of aesthetic that stands out in so many ways, like the gritty nature of it. It doesn't feel like watching a movie. Sure. Even though you're watching a movie, clearly. It's like, or the cinema, but it's like the vibe of LA that they were going for. At the time, I remember loving it in the theater, but watching it now, we're so used to the digital world, but man, you could feel it shifting from a cinematic standpoint.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's what a great like call out to Mann as a director to be like, we're going to shift this and not have it feel like, because, you know, Ali was one before Heat, Ali, like it.
Yeah.
This had to feel more like grounded and like dirty and granular. I don't know why, like, but kudos to that choice of not having it feel like a glossy film.
Yeah. So they did it on purpose. They used digital on purpose. This is one of the first films that was really digital completely through and through. And I remember it being like, especially handheld digital, it's very jarring in a lot of ways, in that it's handheld, but then it's because digital was so more or realistic, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially when like Cruise is walking across the screen, sometimes it felt like almost fake because at the time we were so used to the 35mm, of course. And so they actually they had to do it digitally because LA at night on 35mm was not possible, because you would end up, especially you would have 35mm, you have to have lighting, you have to have, I mean, obviously they have lighting, but digital can bring in much more natural, sort of like that deep, dark light,
contrast.
Right. And it can bring that in. Whereas 35mm really actually, in order to process on film, actual physical film, you need to have contrast of light and dark.
Sure.
So you have to have light set up somewhere along the way.
Sure.
And so to really capture LA at night, or the city at night,
like
they
what is
had
in
to
the
do
world.
digitally.
Yeah.
Right. And so Mann said that this wasn't even possible years prior because they
That's
didn't have
so
the digital setup.
But it totally works for like the, you know, the vibe.
Right.
It sounds so dumb to say the vibe.
No,
but like,
it's going to tie into what I'm going to say
it's
next.
the feeling of it.
Yeah.
Where it's just like random cab and then it goes off the rails.
Yep.
And it just feels lived in. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It just feels so in the moment.
Digital can do that. Right.
Yeah, love it.
That's
all I
yeah.
got. That's
No,
all I got.
I have a couple more thoughts, but really my biggest last thought, or sort of last thought, is no cinematography nomination. Eat a D.
Right?
Eat a D. Like, seriously? So I looked again, and it was The Aviator, House of Flying Daggers, and Passion of the Christ were up before 2. Deserving nominations.
Yep.
You haven't seen Daggers, I bet.
No.
Passion of the Christ is a beautiful film,
Yes,
and quite
yes.
frankly, I think should have won. The Aviator actually won for cinematography that year. But Phantom of the Opera and Very Long Engagement were the other two. So the Very Long Engagement was that like French film from the same guy who did Amelie, I think.
Yes, it is.
And,
yes,
and had Jodie Foster randomly in it.
The Phantom
of the Opera was over this, and I don't get me wrong, it was a beautiful film, but like, give me a break.
Seriously,
right? And that's so I go like, This is widely considered to be the first real full-on digital film that looks and feels like a regular film for the most part, quote unquote. They could not have shot this at night in LA on a traditional 35, as I just said. And it's largely thanks to the cinematographers who were Dion Beebe, who's an Oscar winner for Memoirs of a Geisha, a beautiful film, and also a nominee for Chicago. And then a guy named Paul Cameron who did other films. But these two guys, I mean, he did a lot of action films. Sure. And so he actually shot a lot of action films. So like, how the hell do you make LA look this beautiful? LA is a shithole of a city.
It is so boring.
It's disgusting. It's spread out. It's gross. Yes. There's nothing to it. There's certainly beautiful parts, but every shot in this film is beautiful. It's set up well. That's a director of photography, or two of them.
Yes.
Who deserves some recognition.
Yes.
And obviously BB got it a couple years later, but like, dude, this is a visually stunning film.
Ahead of its time.
Yes. Yes. So, and I have two other thoughts.
Love it.
Number one, I love that there wasn't a bag of money at the end. Like somehow Vincent had it, and then now Max gets to live out his dream because he gets the bag of money.
So great.
Or whatever. Like he just did it to do it. He was a good dude.
Yes.
And I gotta just say, you mentioned it off air. Spare a thought for James Newton Howard, the composer. He created a 1 hour score, a full-on 1 hour score for a 2 hour movie. He had 1 hour of music, only to have Michael Mann end up using basically none of it.
Yeah.
Until the
few
last
drums.
maybe 15 minutes. And it's all like a perfectly used soundtrack though.
Yes.
But it's modern music, and then you end up with Audio Slave on there in one of the best moments.
Groove Armada.
Yes. And so like, but just spare a thought. The dude like just goes out of his way. Really intense score at the end with like the drums and like the guitar going on at the same time. And he's like, nah, we're gonna use like, thanks, James. You got your money. We're just gonna like move on here.
Yes.
I'm going up there, I'm gonna try it, I'm gonna let the jury decide.
As we close out our spotlight segment, we come to our final takes called The Verdict.
If we are to have faith and justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
This is where Tim and I give our final verdicts after rewatching the film and decide whether or not the movie held up over the course of 2 decades.
Now you get out of here before I call the bailiff and have you thrown in jail.
This is The Verdict.
I said to hell with it, to hell with it.
Michael Mann's second best film after Heat, in my opinion. Collateral is an all-time classic, really, of suspense, murder, and intrigue. This cat and mouse thriller is elevated by centering on an average guy over his head, yet rising to the challenge, made even more impressive by just career standout work from Cruise as a rare bad guy, coupled with a career-defining, come-out-of-nowhere performance by Fox. Gritty, gripping, and edge-of-your-seat compelling, and yet appreciating this tiny, slow moments in between all that. I really think this film is a unique entry into the quote-unquote thriller genre. 4.5 out of 5. I just effing love this film.
Yeah, I mean, we said it earlier. We're going to love on this film. For me, Collateral is the type of studio movie that film students wish they would make someday.
Yeah.
Michael Mann has crafted a beautifully balanced film that offers us no additional information than we need and offers visuals that show us exactly what we want to see and nothing more. Add to that top performances from Fox and, as usual, Cruise. And we have a modern classic thriller that pretty much no one has remembered 20 years later.
Yep.
If Mann hadn't already created the all-time great thriller Heat, this would be his crowning achievement. It is rare enough for a director to have one masterpiece, rarer still for someone to have two. Yet here we are. I have 4.75, damn near perfect. Solely because I would say Heat is a better film, so I have to kind of say it's, but it's there's no notes and there's no quibbles, there's no notes. You can't we even talked about how like on the damn phone it was 16th floor and she was on the 14th and that matched.
Yes.
Like the attention to detail was great. There's very, very, very few like errors
like
in this
overly
movie.
Go, really?
Yeah.
Like, no. It
and
totally
it's
works.
under 2 hours. So give me that every time.
Come on, not my beer.
with our reactions and verdicts to the movie out of the way, we move on to the reactions to our beers that we drank while rewatching our subject movie.
And if you want to have sex with a disgusting bad brewer with a terrible attitude,
this is where we take a look back at our beers and give our expert ratings for our drinking buddies.
Ugh, whatever. Hey, here's the truth.
This is Drinking Buddies.
Let's get weird.
We started the evening with Stone Brewing out of San Diego, their Arrogant Bastard Ale, which when we were thinking about I was looking at options this week, I was like,
this is the closest thing you got to a theme beer, right?
It's the closest, yes. And now having watched it, I'm like, I mean, I guess it's not really arrogant, but whatever.
He wasn't arrogant. Like you said at the beginning, I was like, no, I don't really think he's arrogant.
No,
he's confident.
I'll give you that. Confident Bastard Ale. And this is like their flagship one that was like a standout for so well.
Yeah,
it was their starter one that put them on the map.
Yep.
And we're like, we haven't had this yet. It's 3.75 for me. I love their IPA, and like so many other stuff is, I think, better. But from a starting point, the biting ale nature of this, it stands out. It's really, really good.
I think for that reason, I have it as a 4 out of 5 because it's not their fault, but the IPA genre, like the IPA has changed.
Yes.
So this is a IPA that 10 to 15 years ago we were begging for.
Yeah.
We got Furious in town here. It's the closest thing we got. This is Furious. This is what Furious is based off of, basically, from Surly.
Exactly.
And so I can't fault them necessarily that, because obviously Delicious is a better IPA.
Yep.
We've had so smoother IPAs have come out.
Yeah.
But what we wanted, and when this was created, it was like, give me more.
Thank you.
It has that. It is a just punch you in the face bite, and it's really good. I have a 4 out of 5, and I wish they would do what Surly did and do a double version of this. I'd be really curious to see what this was with their Double Furious,
because they had one years ago where they barrel aged it in like bourbon or whatever.
Yeah,
and I was like, it was really
it was good.
Then we had Fair State out of Minneapolis, their Hefeweizen, which. It's a classic style, one of their kind of flagship they had for a long time, and it kind of went away, it felt like, and then brought it back. Yep. Haven't seen it. It was a 3.75 for me. It's a really great version of that style. I must say, I have no need for 16 ounces. It's one of those, it's a nice summer beer. Yeah, I still have some left. They have the banana label. I've never quite appreciated. Yeah. It doesn't taste like bananas, or
some
even smell.
Do. Some
well,
do, and that's why I like this one better, because it doesn't taste like banana.
It doesn't. No, it's like a more like a farmhouse style. But 3.75 for me.
It is a little more saison-y, like that.
Very much
more of a farmhouse ale. I have a 3.5. It's fine. I didn't finish it. It's the only one of the night I didn't finish, so I kind of had to knock it down. But I agree. I don't. I get why some breweries do it. Maybe it's because you only do. Because Fair State only does 12 ounces in their crank and foamers and their crank and foamer line. I think
the bigger packs,
but this just does not need to be in a 16 ounce. A Heffy does not need to be there. So I couldn't finish it, so I was like, 3.5.
And then we had Steel Toe out of St. Louis Park, Minnesota. Their Schwarzbier Dark Lager. It's a 4 for me. It's got like a nice dark notes. It's got a good flavor. I wrote clean. I don't know why I said clean. Like it's like dirty, but whatever. No, I like this. It was a really tasty like black lager option for me. Yeah, 4.
Yeah, 3.75 for me. Not because it was bad, just because it was like it's fine.
Sure.
Yeah, I got nothing for it. Steel Toe, to me, they have yet to make a great beer that is not an IPA. And until they do that, I've had their sours, I've had their black ales, I go to their brewery all the time. Like,
true.
So I'm like, it's fine, but there's nothing about this that I'm like, oh my god, I would watch it again.
Get it.
But it was good. I finished it, so that's why it's ahead of the Heffy.
It helped those 12 ounces, but yes. And then we had Falling Knife out of Minneapolis. Their psychedelic car nap. Mm-hmm. What a dumb name, but whatever. They're double.
Plus the freaking psychedelic carnap is actually the shortest description on this can.
So bear with us.
God.
It's the double dry hopped hazy double IPA with experimental HB something 630 cryo and HB E, I guess. Maybe that's a lever. 1019 Citra Cryo and Nelson 7 hops. Again, I appreciate the clarity, but sometimes, just tighten it up.
The freaking cryo sub. Like,
Yeah.
Just name it Darth Vader hops for all I care.
But
like, just
exactly.
come up with a name.
Yeah. Hoppity hop hop.
Yes.
But it was a 4.25.
Yep.
For me. It's one of those I'm like, God, they are still the best.
Yep.
One of the best in the city. Like, they're so freaking good.
Yeah, to the point where it makes me think that that's the best Drecker beer I've had in 10 years.
That's a great comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, everything I've had from Drecker, like everything we've had from Drecker is the same. It's like there's certain ones like Black Stack Brewing and Drecker and Junkyard, and they all taste the same.
Yep,
like it
it's
just doesn't
label.
matter. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and they're like, "Oh, I like this from Black Stack." I was like, well, cool. Don't ever have anything else from
Oh, do you?
because it'll just be the exact same as what you just had.
Yes.
Which, don't get me wrong,
quirky
it's
name.
fine, but like just don't pretend that it's something different.
Yeah.
This is a good Falling Knife beer. Which means it's a 4.25 because they're always good.
Yep.
They're so good.
It was very good.
The exciting quiz program 21.
Our final segment of the episode is Quiz Show,
I have stood on the shoulders of life, and I've never gotten down into the dirt to build.
where in our research for our subject film, we find some interesting trivia nuggets that we hope will stump the other and possibly intrigue you.
This is not McCarthyism. You're not here to expose for the sake of exposure.
This is Quiz Show.
Well, evidently certain of the contestants were given the answers in advance.
Cheating on a quiz show. It's like plagiarizing a comic strip.
I have two. I didn't come up with any.
I got three
during the show, so why don't you go first?
So, director Michael Mann
Mm-hmm.
has been nominated for 4 Oscars.
Yes.
3 of which were not related to directing.
Okay.
2 for producing a Best Picture nominee and 1 for writing. But can you name the one film for which he's been nominated, which is kind of a travesty in the grand scheme of things, but one film for which he's been nominated for Best Director, which we briefly covered in the 99 episode.
Insider.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was a producer on The Aviator, right?
He was.
Yeah, okay.
And a
'Cause his
producer
other 3
on-
were...
Well, producer
Insider.
on Insider and the writer.
Yeah,
for
writer,
Insider.
director, producer, and then on Aviator. That's
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about it from a Heat standpoint and from this standpoint, now since this movie, he's had a struggle.
It's been a diminishing
I don't mind
returns.
Miami Vice because he was a producer and a writer or whatever on the show. So
Yes.
I get it.
Yes.
But it goes off the rails. But I'm really looking forward to what he's going to do with Heat 2 because it's in pre-production now. You love the book.
The book was so good.
Which he wrote.
Yes.
And then he's writing and directing the movie. So you go like, okay, now it's a passion project. So I'm excited.
I cannot wait for it.
Yeah.
I just it's one of those things like, please live up. Like, well, the book was so good.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to condense it into a movie, but fine.
Yeah.
But it's like a sprawl. I mean, you think Heat is sprawling. This is like
it's over
decades
right?
of sprawling. So
Yep, I got to read it.
We'll see. Oh, it's so good, dude.
So anyway, Insider. All right.
Nice
so the role of Detective Fanning, played by Mark Ruffalo in the film, was originally cast with a different actor, one with a different connection with both Cruise and Michael Mann. Care to try to guess the actor who co-starred with Cruise and has starred in a Mann classic? It's the best I can do for a hint.
I know, because otherwise it'd be narrowing down. It's not his cousin, is it? No.
No, yeah. No.
Maypother or whatever.
Yeah.
So starred with Cruise.
He has starred with Cruise.
And he's been
in a Mann classic, and we've just talked about 2 of them, so I just narrowed it down for
Colin Farrell. Miami Vice and...
You think Miami Vice is a classic? Mann classic.
Maybe not classic. Okay, so
Heat. What's his other...
Somebody in
That's right.
Heat.
Who also co-starred with Cruise. That should be a dead giveaway right there, but you're going to hate yourself when I say it.
I can't think of all the cast members in there.
That's fine. So Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
Was originally cast. as-
Really?
Yes. But he had to drop from the role due to conflicts with, wait for it, his role in Alexander. So, buddy, you
speaking
might
of
have made the
Colin
wrong
Farrell.
decision on that one.
Yeah, you might be like,
I think I let that one go. But yeah, so he was originally
Really?
cast, but he had to drop out because there were a lot of delays along the way with this movie. So.
Sure. It's like, oh man, that's no great. So we've seen Jada Pinkett Smith in the second and third Matrix films
that's
that we
correct.
covered last year, and she starred in a slew of other films and provided voice work for the Madagascar movies. And in the small bit she's in this, she's fine.
She's fine.
Like,
There's
she's good.
nothing about her. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. She does exactly what she's supposed to do in this movie.
Yet she had her big screen debut in what 1993 Hughes Brothers directed film of Life on the Streets.
What brothers?
The Hughes Brothers.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. I feel like we had talked about this before, but no. Is it Menace to Society?
It is.
Yeah.
Nice.
Great movie, actually. You haven't seen it.
I have never seen it. No,
it's really good. Okay, cool. All right.
Nice job.
I feel like I was like, it wasn't deja vu because we haven't said it before with her, but I was like, did we talk about this with Pinkett Smith? That doesn't matter.
Nice.
All right. So before Michael Mann was hired to direct this film, the film was offered to Spike Lee, Martin Scorsese, and Steven Spielberg. Thankfully, all considered but passed. Though, admittedly, if this film took place in New York City as originally scripted, which it actually was originally scripted to be in New York City,
Really?
Spike Lee could have done some cool stuff with this movie.
Yeah, it could be.
Because he knows New York better than anybody else. So they all passed. However, the film was actually initially under DreamWorks control, and so it was attached to a different director from this era. What director whose 3 previous films to this were The Peacemaker, Deep Impact, and Pay It Forward was originally attached to make this film?
Forgive me for being such a male idiot.
Yep.
Oh,
It's a woman.
It's a woman. And I feel like a total douchebag.
A multi-Emmy Award winner, actually.
Gosh. Mimi Leader.
That is correct! Look at you! I don't know where you pulled that from. You probably researched it and pretended.
Oh, no. I did. I just, for some reason, the Emmy thing you talked about, because I remember reading a story about how she moved out of Hollywood and went to TV shows.
Yeah, she was. Well, actually, she won for ER. She was a producer on ER and a director in the 90s.
Nice.
Yep. Mimi
Interesting.
Leader.
Huh.
Dude.
Peacemaker's not a bad movie.
Dude, none of those are bad movies. Pay It Forward is a little cheesy, but...
Sure, but that's the writing. Like.
Deep Impact's actually, I think, as good as Armageddon. I think it gets a bad rap. And The Peacemaker has the best opening in a long-ass time.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Oh, I own it. You can watch it.
All right.
With the atomic bomb on the train.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Oh, man. Love it. That's actually a pretty solid movie.
Nice. So, we talked about him in the Felix. Our friend Javier Bardem. He plays a crucial yet somewhat small role in this film.
Yep.
He's a well-known actor, as people know,
Is he?
for lots of roles in major franchises ranging from Dune, Skyfall, Little Mermaid, and Pirates of the Caribbean. Yet he's been nominated 4 times for an Oscar in more subdued and very much more quiet performances, with one of them being a win coming in 2008. Can you name the 2000, 2007, 2010, and 2021 films in which he's been nominated? The winner...
Well, obviously, the winner is No Country for Old Men.
There you go.
That was in 07?
07, yep.
Yeah. 2000, was that Diving Bell and a Butterfly or whatever it is? Or,
Oh, no, it's a French one.
Yeah, what's... no, his is... oh, shit. I can even picture the cover of it. Like, I can picture the poster of it.
Takes place in Cuba.
Cuba. I don't think I'm going to get that one. What were the other years?
2010.
Okay.
And 2021.
2021. Wow.
So he won for Best Supporting.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
Country.
obviously in 07.
The other 3 are Best Actor.
They're all Best Actor. Sure. Oh, my God. I know all of them. You know what I mean? Sugar. I did not research my Javier Bardem today. That's my own fault. 2021 is the one that's actually going to piss me off because it's only 3 years ago.
Yep.
And Best Actor. That's where I'm like, wait a second here. What am I missing?
Aaron Sorkin.
See, and that even pisses me off more.
Nicole Kidman.
Oh, yeah. Being the Ricardos.
There you go.
Yes, thank you. Literally a film that I know nobody who has watched.
I've never seen it.
And I
No.
love Aaron Sorkin. I know nobody who's watched it.
Mhm.
My ex loves Aaron Sorkin, loves them, and still didn't watch it.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. Yeah.
Oh,
And it's
then
like we had a
the other
lockdown.
two.
Nothing else to do,
Yeah,
but
I mean, what is it?
Before Night Falls.
Okay, and then what's 2011?
Beautiful.
Oh, sure. I never would have gotten there.
Nope.
No.
Yeah, it's one of those like, huh.
Oh, okay.
He is.
No, I knew he was
highly
nominated
rated, yeah.
multiple times. But I just literally know nobody who has seen Being the Ricardos. None.
No.
And I love Aaron Sorkin.
Yes.
Love it. I never watched that movie.
Yep.
Ugh.
Nice.
All right, that brings us to the end of the episode. Be sure to find all of our previous episodes on your favorite streaming platforms. And watch out for our upcoming happy hour on Dodgeball and multiple episodes on the remaining films of 1994, Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, and Shawshank Redemption. Find us on the web via the metaverse of Facebook, Instagram, or Threads. Kind of. And head to 20years4beers.com for more info. We want to say thank you for taking the time to listen and for clicking that like or subscribe button on your devices.
Thank you.
Okay. This has been 20 Years 4 Beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks.
There we go.
I have a wife and kids and I'm busy.
It's a woman.
It's a woman. And I feel like a total douchebag.
Sucking off most of our
This-
movies, but this is. Let's not talk about Mike. We're not
It's
talking
not
about
Michael Bay.
We're not talking about Michael Bay.
Got ahead of it.
That's when you speak up,
Yeah.
sir.
Know your place.
Shut your mouth when I'm talking to you.